Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next webinar in our series that's supporting the Docker AI Machine Learning Hackathon. My name is Michael Irwin, and I'm part of the developer relations team here at Docker. And again, I welcome you to this session. I'm excited to have two of my colleagues here with me from the extensions team. We got Guillaume and Lucas, and we'll turn the time to them in just a moment. But before doing that, I just want to remind everybody that the AI Machine Learning Hackathon is still going, and it's still not too late to join if you'd like. We'll put the link in chat, and we'll put it down in the video description afterwards as well too. And if you're looking for help, and if you're looking for support or questions or whatnot, check out the the Docker community Slack workspace. That's also linked in the dev post list of resources as well. There you'll also find links to our previous webinars, live streams that we've done before. And just a reminder, submissions are coming up pretty soon. So you've only got one more week to work on things. Um, but I've got faith in you. You can do some pretty awesome stuff in a week, especially with AI, machine learning, and everything else going on. So, but again, it's not too late to jump in if you'd like to get started. So with that, I'll turn the time over to, I think, Guillaume, you're going to be starting us off first, and I'll turn it over and let you two introduce yourselves as well, and go from there.
Okay.
And just one quick reminder, if folks that are watching have questions, feel free to drop questions in chat, and we'll go from there. So thanks all, and welcome aboard.
So yeah, I can start. Well, we can introduce ourselves first. So I'm Guillaume Tardif. I'm a staff engineer at Docker. I've been at Docker for 6.5 years now, and I worked on many different parts: Docker Desktop, the CLI, Compose, so some open source, some not open source. And the past 2 years, I focused on extensions. I worked in the publisher team at Docker with Lucas. And so, Lucas, I let you introduce yourself quickly.
Yeah, I'm Lucas. I'm a senior front-end engineer. I've been at Docker for the past year and a half now. And the past year, I've been working in extensions in the publisher team with Guillaume.
So I'll just very quickly give a bit of context about extensions before we dive into how to create your own extensions and do some funky things with AI with that. So I'll share my screen and um, share screen. Okay. So I won't be too long about this context, but just for people who might not know too much about extensions, what are Docker extensions, and also why did we create extensions? So extensions are really a way to put some new functionality into Docker Desktop and to add new features into Docker Desktop. Features that are not specifically built by Docker, but also by partners. So that's a way to have other tools interacting with Docker Desktop and to have a great integration of tools into desktop. So it's a way to add new functionality, also a way for people to discover new tools in Docker Desktop so that they can solve some of their problems in Docker Desktop without switching between tools all the time. It's a way for you to integrate Docker Desktop with your own workflows and automate things inside Docker Desktop. Again, avoiding switching tools and having your own custom tools next to desktop and switching all the time. And it's a way for Docker to also let the community and the partners contribute to desktop and bring their own features into Docker Desktop. So that's a way to integrate with existing tools, existing solutions, and have better workflows just under your hand inside the Docker toolset. So if you don't know anything and you want to get a feel of what are extensions, you can just navigate to the extension marketplace and try to install some of those tools. So inside Docker Desktop, you've got a marketplace that will present you some of the existing extensions. You can just by one click install an extension. I can show you a feel of how it looks like. So if I'm here using Docker Desktop, sorry for that. I'll switch back to nightmare.
Seems like you have a couple of icons there in the desktop.
How do I switch back to my presentation? Yeah. Okay, that's
Yeah.
going to be better. So, so if I switch to Docker Desktop here, I've got the extension marketplace with some suggested extensions, and then I can just navigate the list of extensions. I can filter by categories, so I can look at extensions about the database, extensions about I don't know, Kubernetes, networking. So I've got various categories of extensions, and I can just select the ones I'm interested in. There's a quite large variety of extensions available in the marketplace, and you can just install them with a single click. And once you install an extension, it gives you additional tabs here in Docker Desktop, and each extension will have its own UI and its own features integrated into the desktop UI. So that's for what extensions are, and then our focus today is going to be about how to create your own extension. So I can go back into slideshow. So for this, we provide an SDK to let people create their own extensions. The goal for this is to let you build your own extension, create your own UI, your own features, and integrate them into Docker Desktop. We have some tools to enable fast development, so we try to make things as easy as possible to have a quick feedback loop when you're developing your own extension. You can, for example, hot reload your UI code and see the UI in Docker Desktop, live reloading your code as you edit it. We have some nice UI package to let you use the desktop theme into your own extension. There's a specific CLI that Lucas will show you that to let you create your extension, manage the lifecycle, install it, uninstall it, and allow you to go through the entire loop of testing your extension and making some changes to it and reloading it. And also I can just quickly go through the documentation and tutorials, or we've got this documentation about the extension APIs and the SDK itself. So there's a lot of documentation and tutorials about how to create your own extension, including how to use the different APIs. So here we have, for example, the top level API that will allow you to create a Docker Desktop client, and then from this client you will be able to do various things. So if I go down a bit, the desktop client will allow you to do things with Docker itself, like listing the containers, listing images, or invoking the CLI, working with the Docker Desktop dashboard, navigate to other parts of Docker Desktop. So from your extension, you can navigate to specific container logs, for example, if you want to debug into a container, these sort of things. And then in the documentation, you can go into some details, and you can do things like list the containers of Docker, list the images, or you can exec some Docker CLI command. So all of this is part of the SDK that is provided to create extensions. And I'm not going to go into too much detail right now. I think it's better to just go into some code samples and get into how to create from scratch an extension. So maybe I can stop sharing now and let you, Lucas, continue on how to create your extension from scratch.
Yes, let me share the screen and we'll start directly from the CLI. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do when you start creating your extension is use the Docker extension CLI. You can use the first command, Docker extension init, and you can give it a name like extension, Hackathon, machine learning, AI. And if you do this, then it's going to ask you a couple of questions like a title to show in Docker Desktop, a description, the vendor, and where do you want to store this in Docker Hub. But if we hit enter, it's going to create everything. So just to save some time, I'm going to cancel it. And I promise I didn't do anything else, but I just did this before starting this live stream. I created one called Extensions Hackathon OpenAI. because the extension that we want to create today is going to be a ChatGPT kind of thing. We're going to use the OpenAI API, and within a Docker extension, we're going to be able to send messages and get responses from the OpenAI API. We're gonna see that in a bit. So the first thing that I did was create the extension, and it created a folder for me, which I'm gonna open in Visual Code, and we can see the structure of this file. We have some files here at the root level, like metadata.json, and this is needed for Docker Desktop to just be able to work and be able to see where the extension lives and just put a name and a logo, etc. But it also contains, as you see here, some part that is a UI, like the front-end side of the extension, and some back-end side that is written in Go for this init command that we just run. And Guillaume, feel free to interrupt me if you see anything that deserves some recognition in the code.
Sure.
So before we dive into the code, we can go to Docker Desktop and see what exactly this extension does. I just installed it, and what it does is it has some text and just a simple button, calls the backend, and it has a response, and it says message hello. All right, so from this, we're gonna go to have a chat with messages and consume OpenAI API to get that. And to do that, the first thing that we want to do, I'm gonna go quickly to the OpenAI spec so that we can see the API that we're gonna consume. In the introduction, if you want to do something with ChatGPT, you see that there's libraries to with Python or with JavaScript. And for this case, we're gonna go with JavaScript. So the first thing that we want to do is have a backend side of the extension written in JavaScript. But first, let's take a look at what we have in the backend now. So what we have in the backend now is just a hello endpoint that we can consume directly from the front end. So essentially, the backend that is defined here defines an endpoint called hello that sends a message, with the string hello. And from the UI, if we take a look at the app, we see that every time that we click this button, the call backend button that we had, it calls this function. And this function just calls this Docker Desktop Client, .extension, .mv, .service, get hello. So this is the Docker Desktop Client that Guillaume was mentioning before, and it has a couple of props and methods that you can use directly from here. And we can explore it a little bit. So you have a desktop UI object. Inside of this object, you can call something like dialog to open a dialog, show open dialog. You can call other things like navigate, so that you navigate to a container screen directly or to an image screen from Docker Desktop. You can also send notifications with a toast. So in case of error, you can say toast.error and then display a message that will get passed to Docker Desktop and see as a notification, as a regular notification that we have in desktop. So yeah, that's for the desktop UI object, but you also have the Docker object where you can list containers, list images, and execute some things in the CLI like docker ps or docker any other command that you want to run. And as this is built with TypeScript, you get all the types. So it's nice to just do dot and expect Visual Code to autocomplete with everything that's inside. And you can see the types that every response is going to return as well. So that's pretty nice. So yeah, this is what the front end is doing. So the first thing that we want to do, again, change the backend to JavaScript backend. So the first thing that we need to change is the Docker file in the root folder, because this one is defining how the image of the extension gets built. And you can see from the very first line that this is based in a Go backend. So we need to do a couple of things, and we need to change that. For this example, I'm just going to copy paste things to make it easier. But you can see here all the changes that are happening to the Docker file. And basically, instead of just starting from a Go image and starting from a Node Alpine image, and then copying some files, etc., just to make it work. And then at the very end, I'm going to spin up a server.js file, which I'm going to use Express for that. But instead of listening to an HTTP port like we always do with Express, we're going to listen to a local socket that we're going to pass here in this argument. So we can get rid of these files. We don't need them anymore. And we're going to replace this with the JavaScript files.
Maybe just to mention one thing, when you start writing your own extensions, you don't have to have a backend. So you can start with just functionality on the UI side. And in this example, we go a bit further and we have some parts on the UI side, some parts on the backend side. And this also illustrates that on the backend side, you can do Go or Java or .NET or whatever. And in this case, Node.js backend.
Exactly. That's a very good point. Like you could query directly the OpenAI API from here. You might miss some of the stuff you can do with a complete backend and database if you want to build it all together. But there's already a lot of functionality that you can do directly from the front-end side with just using the Docker Desktop Client library. Okay, so for this example, I just replicated what I had in Go before. This is an Express server that has a hello endpoint that sends a message with the string hello. The same thing that we had before with the Go backend. So now what I can do is Docker extension update, which is another command that we provide so that you can update your extension every time that you have a new change. I could pass the name of the extension and the tag, but we provide a makefile. You can see it here in the root folder as well. So you don't have to build the extension and then update at the same time, and you can just run make update, and you can see that it's just doing a Docker build and then Docker extension update with an image and a tag, and the image and tag are in here. These are the names that when you run Docker extension in it, it gets filled with this name in here. So if I run make update extension and I go back to Docker Desktop, I should see at some point the extension changing because I'm going to remove what I have right now. You can see in the containers tab that there's a service running for the extension. And as soon as I hit yes and update, you see that the extension is with a spinner. And then when it gets loaded, it loads the extension again. So on the front end, we didn't do any changes, and it was only on the backend side. And hopefully, because we just changed the backend from Go to Node.js, but with the same functionality, if we click on here, yes, we see the message hello appearing in here. Awesome. So let's add a chat component then and start doing more cool things. We come here for. So again, for the purpose of this example, I'm just gonna copy paste a chat UI component in here because we want to showcase like the things that you could do with the extension and not focus on the styles and everything. But this is a very generic chat component that has some messages, and probably the main thing to highlight is that every time that we send something, we are calling this function send message, which is gonna again consume the hello endpoint that we have in the backend. So we're calling the same thing. We're a Docker Desktop Client extension VM service get and /hello, which is going to return a hello message. So in order to see that, I'm going to change, I'm going to remove all this in the app actually, so that we're only having the title and then the chat. Okay, perfect. And now I need to update the extension again so that the UI reflects all the changes, right? Because the UI remains like that. But we can also spin up the UI independently. Let's go to the UI folder and let's run npm install and npm run dev. Okay. Oh, let's click on yes. I'm gonna do this later, but I think it's okay, or maybe not. Yes, I think I need to add this to the package JSON because I'm using this in the chat. Sorry about that. So I'm just adding these libraries just to do something with dates and just something for icons to have more visual things in the chat. Okay, so then I think we can do this, npm install and npm run dev. And this is going to spin up a server, a bit server in localhost 3000. And the cool thing that we're going to do now is we'll go back to the other terminal. And in here, we're going to do Docker extension. And we have a couple of commands to help you with the development of your extension. We have a debug extension command, sorry, and we'll call it with the name of the extension. I'm going to copy it from the makefile because I forgot. And what this is going to do is it's going to enable debug mode for the extension. And what does that mean? Let's go back to Docker Desktop and see it. So if you see this now, debug mode is enabled. So if I navigate away from the extension and back, I should see the developer tools now here. And it's very nice because I can directly debug anything that happens in the UI. And I can put some console log and I can see what is happening behind the scenes in case something gets wrong. Hopefully during this demo, nothing will get wrong, but we don't know. Okay, so I enabled this dev debug, but this didn't do anything about reloading the extension. What we have for that is another command called dev UI source, where we specify the name of the extension and then where are we going to listen to the changes, or where are we going to spin up entirely different UI. And the UI that we just created was, I think it was created in localhost 3000. And the UI source for the extension is not the code that was inside the image and the JavaScript files that were generated anymore. And it's pointing now to this localhost 3000. And there we go. If we go back to Docker Desktop and see the extension, we now see a chat saying, hello there, how can I help you today? This message was just there at the beginning. We're not doing anything. And yeah, in the developer tools, you see now a warning message saying something about styling that we didn't fix, and something about React DevTools. But you can see now that this is different. And in the title of this window, you can see this pointing to localhost 3000 with an extension name and all the other parameters that we need for this. All right, so once we have that, the chat component that we generated, what it does, we said that every time that we post a message like this, it's going to query the same hello endpoint. So we're not expecting anything else. Hello, and it replies hello. Don't you have other answer? And should reply hello, because that's all we have in the backend side. So in the backend side now, we're going to add OpenAI, and the API that we're going to use is the chat one for completions. I think it's this one. This is a legacy one. Create chat completion is this one that we see here. If we change that, we can see how can we use it from Node.js. And it's basically importing the library and then calling that a method that's called chat completions.create with an array of messages to pass like the context that we want to pass. And then it's going to respond with an object like this one below here. And in this message, what we're interested only in the first item here in choices. That's why this console log says completion.choices on the 0 position. And we're interested in this message because this is the response from ChatGPT. Hello there, how may I assist you today? Okay, so for that, I'm going to modify a little bit the chat. So to see the changes that we're doing, sorry about that. I'm going to commit these changes. So basically just removing the backend and adding the chat to the app so that we can see what we modify later. So for this, change backend chat, that works. Okay. And now for the chat, let's copy and paste again, and we can see just this difference. Instead of doing a post get request to the hello endpoint, we're doing a post request to messages, and we have to implement messages now in the backend side. So let's do that. If we go to the server in the backend side, instead of hello, we're going to have now something else. We're going to have a post with messages, and The only thing that is needed in here is an extra API key that we need to make the OpenAI object initialize. So for this, I just have something locally that works, and we have to modify a bit the compose file because we haven't talked about the compose file yet because we only had service with a backend in here. Again, if you use an extension without a backend, you wouldn't need to have anything inside the services here because you wouldn't need that. But for this one, what we're gonna have is we'll add an M file that I have in my local machine so that I can use the API key that I have. All right, and for this, because we changed the backend, we need to update the extension for the changes to appear, because now we changed the chat to query a messages endpoint. But if I recall correctly, and if I click on send, there's a hello message, and the send spinner gets in here, but we see an error here in the console because we're not catching the error. We're just expecting it to be this is here in the console. And this is a good case to just modify this and just wrap everything into a try catch so that we can send a notification to Docker Desktop. So let's do that. If we wrap everything into a try catch, let's wrap all of this and then catch. We can do Docker Desktop Client .desktop UI .toast.error failed to send message. That's perfect. And if it fails, we also want the loading to be false. And I think that's good enough. Let's try again. So if we go back and let's jump away and back so that we get rid of the loading state, and we type hello, this is going to query the endpoint that doesn't exist, and it should give an error, failed to send message. Oh, yeah, I have to update. But yeah, failed to send message. I should see the message in the notification center. And that's the way the notifications work in Docker Desktop. If we ever change how notifications work, you don't have to worry about. You just use the SDK with the notification method that we have, and that should be enough for you to create one for Docker Desktop. Awesome. So let's go back and update the extension. So I can run make update extension again, and this should update the backend with the changes that we have in the server with a post endpoint to messages. Hopefully it doesn't take that long. And one other thing that will happen here is that we haven't tied together yet the update with the debug mode. So probably once after it finishes installing, I need to set up the debug mode again. If you see Docker Desktop, this disappeared from it. So we can just go back and see if we type hello. Now, what it's doing is calling this messages endpoint. We're calling ChatGPT with the chat completions create method. We're getting the message and we're sending the message through the endpoint. Then the chat is setting the message through in the list of messages that we have for the chat. The messages that we had and the new one that comes after the request. So if we hit send, sometimes it takes a while, but usually it takes just a couple of seconds. Hello, how can I assist you today? And this is coming from the ChatGPT, from the OpenAI library response. So we can ask now anything, and this would be the same if we use the OpenAI playground that it has. Like, Guillaume, do you have any favorite question about Docker that we can ask? Oh, I think you're muted.
Sorry, thanks.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can try maybe what does -p mean in Docker run? Trying to ask something about how to use the Docker CLI.
Okay. I hope this is not very difficult and you can answer in a couple of seconds. Oh, the -b flag in the Docker run command is used to specify the port mapping between the host machine and the container. It allows you to expose and bind a container's ports to the host machine's ports. Syntax for using the -b is as follows, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
This makes a container application.
So that's if you're new to Docker, you don't know things about specific flags in the command line, you can get ChatGPT to explain things on very specific subjects.
Yep, and that's great. We have a backend to query that, but again, like if you're not, if you don't want to use a backend and just use curl directly from the UI side, you could do that. But one of the things that we wanted to highlight as well in this example is that now, if you're doing that only from the UI, you're missing all the history of the chats, right? So we want to make sure that we also have a database where we can store all these messages and we can store the context that we have now. So if you're learning Docker and asking a lot of questions, you can see all the questions in here and not lose it every time that you navigate away and back. Like if I do this, I'm losing all the things because I'm not storing them anywhere. So yeah, like for that part, I think we can spin up a Mongo database and see how we can store that in the database for the extension. Let's go again to the Docker Compose file, and just adding a Mongo database is as easy as adding another service in here. I'm gonna just do an image Mongo and exposing the port, and again updating the extension so that these changes make sense. And
here you just add a couple of lines in Compose, and all of a sudden you have a database in the background of your extension that's available for your service to do anything with it.
Exactly. So now, if you see the stack here for my extension, before I had only one service was the backend, and now we have a service and a Mongo database. And if I click on here, I should see some logs that is doing. So it's running. It's and now we need to connect the backend to the database. But it was as easy as just adding those lines to the Docker Compose command. Okay, awesome. So let's commit that again to keep with the flow and know whether we're going to change in each step. So this adds database and adds messages endpoint. Cool. So now for the server, we're going to have a couple of things. Now we need to connect with a Mongo database, and we're going to use Mongoose for that. So I added a couple of extra things in here. Apart from just being an Express app, this will allow us to just parse the request body. And this is just a logger so that we can see logs happening for all requests that we do from the front end. This is the same in initializing OpenAI. And this is the new part. Excuse me. For the MongoDB connection, we're just using the MongoDB URL in here. And this last part is just, it's just a name that I want to put it, but any name could work. And I'm just waiting for this connection to put a console log, so MongoDB connected, so that we know we can check the logs and see that the backend was actually connecting to the database when calling this function in here. And then just for the database, I'm creating a schema for the messages, which has a role that will indicate if the message is coming from us or if it's coming from ChatGPT, the content of the message, and just as a timestamp so that we can sort all messages and display it in a chat mode. And then apart from having these post messages, we're having a get. So in this get endpoint, we're going to do just message.find. And this will retrieve all messages in the database. And if we do that now, we're not going to have anything. So the first thing that we want to do is just post a message in the database. I'm posting a message in the database now. What this endpoint is going to do is not only is going to save that message into the database. It's going to save that message. It's going to pass all the history to the ChatGPT method. And then also save the ChatGPT response to the database. And then it's going to return all the list of messages. We could only send the last message, and then on the front end side just keep concatenating the last results. But I think any decision would work. So in this case, we decided to just return the list of messages, and the only thing that we need to do from the front end is change that part when we receive the message from the backend. So yeah, this is the new server that we're spinning, and we're gonna update the extension so that we see that if this server is working and connecting to the database. What we're adding to the backend is this console log after it's connected. So we should see in the logs once it's done that it's connected. All right, so yeah, Express server listening and MongoDB connected. Awesome. I think we have a question like how to create in Windows. I'm not sure what it's referring to, Guillaume. Like how to create an extension in Windows.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I get the question right, but if this is about, is there any difference between Mac and Windows to create your own extension? Mostly there's no difference, so you should be able to use the same UI codes on Mac and Windows. You should also be able to connect your UI to the backend the same way. If you want to use specific binaries, then the binaries would need to be different for Mac and Windows. But apart from this specific case, everything that we have been doing so far, you could run it exactly the same way on Windows, and it should work the same. So the connection between the UI and the backend is abstracted away from the extension code, so that you just connect the code as it's written today here in this sample, and then the desktop will manage the connection between the UI and the backend in a different way on Windows and Mac, but that doesn't change anything for your own code.
Exactly. Like I think
that answers the question, but that's what I understand from it.
Yeah, I think everything that we did today, like having a backend written in Go or Node.js, having a compose file that also spins a database and integrating that to the backend and connecting the front end to the backend, that could be done in Windows, Mac, or Linux the same way, without doing anything else.
Yeah, and especially you can share your extension with some of your colleagues working on Windows or Mac. You don't care really at this stage. Your extension should be working exactly the same way. So you don't even have to package your extension differently for Mac and Windows, as long as you're not using native specific things in your extension.
Exactly, which is the binaries thing that you said before.
Yeah. So yeah, if you need to use some specific binaries because you're reusing an existing tool that is packaged as a binary on Windows or Mac. But apart from this case, everything we've been doing so far, you don't need to do anything OS specific. It's all working the same on Mac and Windows and Linux.
Great. Okay, so let's get back to what we were doing here. We just updated the extension to have this new part, and this is connected to the MongoDB. And now if we go back to the chat, we need to update it so that we can use now the new shape of the API that we did, which is send back the list of messages instead of just the last message. So if we see here, we have a couple of changes. The send message function, now when we send the message, it sets the message to the new response. It doesn't get the new one and concatenate it, but just sets it because we're passing the whole history. And then another change that you see here is this use effects. So now when we initialize the extension, when the component mounts, we're gonna do a request to get messages. And this is the one that I was referring before. This is gonna retrieve the list of messages that we store in database. So at the beginning, now when we go to Docker Desktop, we're not gonna see anything. But then what it's gonna do is if we save some messages and we go away and then go back, we're gonna be able to see it. So let's do that. Let's just go in back just to see the changes. Just in case, because I updated the extension, I'm gonna turn again the debug, and the UI source mode. Awesome. And now what I see here is I don't have an initial message because that has changed. And we're now getting the message directly from the database. And I can type again, hello. And this is going to query ChatGPT, store that hello message in the database. The response that is coming here in a few seconds is going to be stored in the database as well. And we can navigate away and back, and we're going to be able to see it. Let's just wait a few seconds. Sometimes even a hello takes some minutes to respond. I don't know why. Maybe lots of people querying the API at the same time. So yeah, we have these messages. Let's navigate it way back. There we go. Now these are stored in the database. And something that we could do, Guillaume, maybe not for this exercise, but we see now here that we don't have any volumes. We're just having I have a lot of volumes, but not because of that. But everything is stored in the container, in the Mongo container. But we could have a volume and store that data into a volume,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. That would be best practice too. So right now, if we trash the Mongo container, we're going to lose the data because the data is stored in the container and not in a volume. So we could just configure Mongo to store the database part, the storage part in a volume so that if we trash the Mongo container, we keep the volume and we can just spin up a new Mongo container to connect it to the same volume and keep the same data. In terms of extensions, the difference would be that if you remove the extension, we're going to completely trash the containers for the extension. So we would lose the two containers here. And if your extension is using a volume, when you remove the extension, we remove the volume as well. But if you update the extension, we need to update the containers because the code of the feature of the extension might have changed. But we would keep the volume so that whenever you go from version 1 to version 2 of your extension, we would keep all the data that's in a volume.
Exactly. Like right now, if I update the extension event, it's going to delete everything and respin up again. And if I enter the chat, I'm not going to be able to see the messages because everything was stored in there instead of the volume.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, just best practice is data that you want to store it in a volume and then connect your containers to the volume to keep that data across updates.
Okay. And just one last question that I have for ChatGPT. Let's say, what are Docker extensions? Let's see if it has any idea or if he needs to watch this live stream in a few days. So yeah, I think we've covered what we wanted to highlight, like how to query how to create an extension from scratch, how to use the Docker desktop client that we have in TypeScript. Oh, there we go.
Well, yeah. Long description about extensions.
Yeah. Also no Docker plugins or Docker add-ons. Well, that's not correctly, but well, we can pass it as an okay answer. So again, as I was saying, we saw how we can create an extension from scratch. Like it doesn't have to be with any language in particular. It just has to have a UI that will reference here in the metadata.json. In this case, we also have a backend that we are spinning up with a server and building it with a Docker file and just having this in the services. And we also have a database declarated here in the services of the Docker Compose as well. And we're querying our own backend through the Docker Desktop Client method. We also did some notifications at some point, and yeah, if we wanted to navigate to other parts of Docker Desktop, we can use the library, and we can use that library for other things as well. But I think for this example, I think we cover everything that we wanted to have. I think we have another question, like how do I begin as someone who have no primary idea?
Yeah, so maybe we can switch back to I would
Yeah, I can,
propose the docs.
yeah,
So
I can stop sharing.
going to previously I was sharing the docs about so let me just go back to what I had before. So yeah, I was previously looking at the docs for Docker extensions. So I was looking specifically at the APIs and what you can interact with in Docker. But of course, you can start from the beginning and go more to so developer SDK. So for the SDK usage, you've got an overview, you've got a quick start, and then several steps how to build your first extension, etc. So probably if you don't know anything about extensions, you want to start creating your own, start at the beginning of the extension SDK documentation here, and that will explain you how to create your first extension, why do you need to have a metadata file to describe the content of your extension, what's the syntax for it, etc. So first go to the documentation, and then Lucas, you were showing the Docker extension init command. That's probably the first good step in terms of actually doing something on your machine. So if you run Docker extension init, it will generate like a hello world extension that gets you started with a simple React front end and a back end. If you want to trash the backend, you can just put the backend aside and just do things on the front end, but you've got an example with a backend, and then you can improve the sample from there. But you start with a working extension within just minutes. So that's probably a good place to start.
Yeah, I would also say that it's a good place also to just explore the marketplace, install some extensions, and see. So like most of them are open source. So if you like what some extension is doing and you are curious or how are they doing it, you can also explore what they're doing in their code as well. Once you get started and see everything that you can do, that's also a good way to learn how others do things.
Yeah, that's probably also a good way to get a feel of what you can do with extensions. So without writing any code, just trying to play a bit with the various extensions that are available in the marketplace, that gives you an idea of what sort of things you can do. So you can list containers, you can select containers to dive into some containers, debug into them, look at images, inspect images, etc. You can do lots of things. So just browsing the marketplace and trying a few extensions gives you a feel of the various things you can do with some of the extensions, so that also can give you ideas of what sort of features are available and what sort of features you can try to hook into some of your existing tools. So yeah, to conclude maybe, well, as I was showing you, you've got quite a variety of things. So you've got extensions about database, extensions about Kubernetes, etc. So try and play with that and create your own extensions. We are happy to have really a large variety of tools in the extension marketplace. So be creative, be crazy about what you can add into Docker Desktop, and I have a few links, a few reference links about, so you can just get started by downloading Docker Desktop if you haven't that already on your machine, and everything is included into Docker Desktop to both run extensions and also develop them. So like the extension CLI you are using, Lucas, this is packaged with Docker Desktop. You can start coding with just Docker Desktop installed on your machine. Go to the SDK docs that we are just mentioning to learn about how to create your own extension, what's the syntax for the various API calls, etc. If you have any feedback about the SDK, you want to have new options, new methods available, etc., you can send feedback using the extension SDK GitHub repo. If you have built an extension and you think it's really something useful, you want to share it with the world and make it part of the extension marketplace, you can submit it. So there's an extension submission repo where you can submit your extensions so that they get included in the Docker marketplace. You can propose ideas of extension even if you don't have if you don't want to invest time, or you don't have the option to create your own extension, but you can submit ideas so that maybe people will also take these ideas and help you to create the extension. One thing that's not mentioned here is if you have created an extension, say for this hackathon, you want to share it with some of your colleagues or share it on social medias, you can also create a link so that people can view your extension even if it's not in the marketplace. So for example, here I've installed Log Explorer, for example, and I can see the extensions that I've got installed on my machine, and I can go there and click the share option that will generate a link, and you can share this link. People will be able to see your extension if you have shared the extension image on Docker Hub. So as soon as you push an extension on Docker Hub, even if it's not in the marketplace, you can use this share link, and you can share this link with your colleagues or share it on social media, and people will be able to click on the link, and they will get the details of your extension with the install button, and they will be able to install the extension even if it's not part of the marketplace. So a good way to first share your extension before it's even included in the marketplace. Do I forget anything, Lucas?
Yeah, like if they have any questions, they should join the Slack channel in our community Slack.
Yeah, we've got a community Slack, so please ask any questions there. We'll be happy to answer about the SDK or any other feature around extensions.
Yes.
I think that's it. Yeah, we've got questions in the chat actually.
Yes, we do. Now Michael is back.
Yep, I'm back. So first off, I want to say great job with the presentation. Lots of great content there, and it's always exciting to hear from the two of you as well. I'll go ahead and inject and say I'm a huge extensions fan myself as well too. I've built a couple just to improve concepts and whatnot. And in fact, even the with DockerCon, the Getting Started workshop I did, I built an extension to help folks learn and just kind of experiment and play with Docker as well too. So lots of really cool things you can do with extensions these days. But yeah, there's another question or two that have come in, and I think some of it this you've touched on, but feel free to dive in maybe a little bit deeper. And I see Ben, one of the other engineers, he's in the chat as well too. So one of the questions was, can you talk about scalability use cases and how a Docker extension can support those use cases? I know that's kind of a broad topic there, but anything come to mind there?
Yeah, that's probably a lot of different aspects you can interpret this question, but first, maybe we can mention that extensions, as they exist today, they are solely for Docker Desktop, so it's not something you deploy on a server and you can use as a SaaS or something like that. It's really something that works on your local machine to help you develop your applications and integrate with other development tools inside Docker Desktop. So that's something you run locally on your machine. I don't specifically see scalability use cases. In terms of, one thing it helps really is to improve your team workflow. So if you have large teams in your development environment, you have to exchange lots of things with your teammates and collaborate with many people. There are probably many aspects in terms of collaboration where extensions can help you scale your teams because you can more easily share your containers, make some application endpoints from your local machine available to your teammates. So if you look at networking extensions, you already have many extensions in this sort of area where you can share your application that you just run on your local machine and make it available to your PM or to your test teams or whatever. So that would be one aspect in terms of scalability, not technical scalability, but more team scalability. I don't know if you think of other things, Lucas, maybe.
No, I think you covered it, and I was gonna say that those extensions are my favorite, like the ones you can share things with other people.
Yeah, and I'll probably maybe add another spin to that as well too. So yeah, not necessarily scalability of your production applications necessarily, but also I'll say, in many ways, a lot of these extensions just help you scale the efforts of your team, and productivity and workflow, as you were talking about as well too. But and again with the SDK there, you can think about the workflows that your team is going through, and hey, I'm going to build a small little app or extension that I'm going to distribute amongst my team just to help my team. So and as we saw earlier, you can build extensions, push up the Docker Hub. They don't have to be on the global marketplace in order for you to be able to install them and use them, get the advantages from them, et cetera. So again, think about what are your particular use cases? What are your pain points? And yeah, here's a convenient Chrome, basically a UI that you can inject your own software into, and your own backing services, et cetera. So you can really build almost anything you can think of. You can plug into that, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, actually, I'm just thinking of another aspect that's related to scalability. That would be testing tools. So
Yeah.
there are many testing tools that allow you to generate loads for your application and then inject loads on your application. And these testing tools can also have some extension associated with them so that they are better integrated in Docker Desktop, and you can right from Docker Desktop next to your containers, you can see the testing some testing tool UI integrated into desktop and run it from desktop. So that would be another aspect of trying to let you load test your application and see how it behaves in terms of scalability if it receives millions of messages. So
Yeah. All right, so there was one more question. I think we've touched on it, and I'll just read, but then I'll tweak it maybe just a little bit. And the question was, what are some good use cases of Docker extensions? And we've talked about lots of different use cases. Maybe so. I'll ask each of you: do you have a favorite extension? I know that
Oh,
may be a hard thing to answer. You know, like you're not supposed to have a favorite child or whatever. But yeah, do you have a favorite extension?
well, yeah, I think there are a couple of extensions around exposing your containers to the world. So, say I run a web app on my machine and I'm starting to debug, fix bugs, or add a new functionality in my web app. And before I even submit a PR, I can make this web application available to my PM or my colleagues just by sharing a link, and they can click on the link, connect to the application running on my laptop. I've not even committed or submitted a PR, and they can comment on it. So it's easy to just exchange a link through Slack, get some feedback, and then yeah, people can just click on a link, access your web app deployed. So I know this Tailscale has an extension since pretty much the beginning of the extension marketplace that does that very nicely. And there are a couple of other products that also have similar extensions that allow you to very easily share your like work in progress on your laptop by just sharing a link and then getting feedback. So a real team productivity tool that is quite useful.
yeah, there are a lot of good ones, but I think the one that I use the most is the disk usage. Like it's really helpful. It's always there. You can just click one button and get rid of all the images that you have, and you didn't even know you had so many. For me, that's the use case that I like the most.
And I think that's kind of a fun one too, because I mean, feel free to correct me since you the team that built it, but it was kind of an extension that was just built to just demonstrate here's what is possible with extensions. But now it's like the number one extension on the marketplace, and it's kind of like highlighting that, hey, just the ability to just click and boom, I've got storage available. Like I think it was kind of a surprise to the team, was it not, that it was so successful?
Yeah, well, yeah, it was effectively built kind of as a showcase of one simple feature you can do with extensions, and I think maybe it's popular because it does just one quite small thing, but it does it well. So it's quite focused as a tool, and you just click on the extension. It gives you a highlight view of a high level view of how your disk usage is spent on either build cache or images or volumes, whatever, and then you can get rid of what you don't need. So yeah, it's quite focused. It's quite simple to use, and you don't need to spend a lot of time using it, but every now and then you just have a look, and within 5 seconds you've cleaned up some of your disk. So
Yeah, very cool. Awesome. Well, we're pretty much at time here, and I'll echo one of the messages also put in the YouTube chat as well too. Um, Gabrielle said, "It's been an absolute pleasure to spend my lunch hour with you all. I appreciate how thorough this has been. I love a good knowledge transfer. So, um, kudos to the two of you as well. Great
thanks very
session
much.
as well.
Thanks very much.
Thank
Our
you.
pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, just to kind of wrap up here as well too, um, you know where to find the extensions team now. So in the Docker community Slack, there is an extensions channel there as well, and join the AI machine learning hackathon channel as well too to continue to get help and guidance and find a teammate, whatever you might want to help you out with this hackathon as well. This session is going to be recorded. It'll be part of the YouTube playlist to support the hackathon. It will also be posted on DevPost, but the other hackathon resources as well. And as always, again, we thank you for joining us as we go throughout this, and feel free to continue the conversation and let us know how we can help you. Thanks all, and have a great rest of your Tuesday.
Thank you very much.